I still remember the day my wife Louise died. Every second of it feels like a blur, and yet, somehow, it's also burned into my memory forever. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in early March. The sky outside was grey, just like it had been for weeks. I was sitting by her hospital bed, holding her hand. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale, and her eyes barely open. The nurses had already told me the end was near, but I kept hoping they were wrong. I kept thinking, maybe she'll wake up and look at me again. Maybe she'll say something. One more "I love you." One more smile. But she didn't. She just slipped away. Peacefully. Quietly. And I sat there, not knowing what to do. For a long time, I didn't even cry. I just stared at her, still holding her hand, like she'd suddenly start breathing again if I waited long enough. We had been married for 32 years. That's a lifetime with someone. I met her when I was 27 and she was 24. She was the kind of woman who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. She had this calm, soft way of talking that made you want to listen. Her laugh, God, her laugh, was light and sweet, and I used to tease her that she laughed like someone out of an old romantic movie. Louise worked as a second-grade teacher for most of her life. She loved kids, even though we only had one of our own, our daughter, Emily. Every student she taught loved her. She remembered birthdays, showed up to their school plays, and sometimes even went out of her way to help their parents with things. She was just that kind of person. Our life was never fancy, but it was good. We lived in the same house for over 20 years. It wasn't big, but it was cozy. Louise took pride in keeping it clean, decorating it every season, planting flowers in the front yard every spring. We had traditions: Sunday morning pancakes, movie nights on Fridays, a trip to the lake every summer. We didn't need much to be happy. She used to wear this lavender perfume. It was subtle, not strong, but comforting. Even now, sometimes I catch a whiff of it on her pillow, and my chest tightens. It was her scent. Just hers. When the cancer came, it hit us out of nowhere. Pancreatic. By the time we caught it, it had already spread. She tried to fight. We both did. Chemotherapy, new treatments, special diets, anything that gave us hope. But nothing worked. Slowly, I watched the strongest woman I knew get weaker and smaller. It broke me. The last few weeks of her life, she barely spoke. She mostly slept. I read to her sometimes, or just sat there, holding her hand. Sometimes I talked, told her about the weather, what Emily was up to, or random memories from our early days. I didn't know if she could hear me, but I talked anyway. I needed to believe a part of her was still with me. When she passed, the silence in the hospital room was deafening. I didn't cry right away. I just kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you, Lou." That was what I used to call her, Lou. She hated it at first, said it made her sound like a truck driver, but over the years, she grew to like it. Planning the funeral felt like walking through a fog. I went through the motions, but I wasn't really there. I chose a simple casket, the kind I thought she would have liked. Emily helped with the flowers, white roses and lilies, her favorites. We picked out music, readings, and her favorite hymn to be sung during the service. We invited close family, friends, and a few co-workers from the school. Louise wasn't the kind of person who wanted attention. She hated anything flashy. So we kept things small, personal, and quiet, just how she would have wanted it. People kept telling me I was strong, that I handled everything with grace, but the truth was, I wasn't handling anything. I was numb. I hadn't even begun to process that the woman I had built my life with, the one I woke up next to every morning for more than 3 decades, was really gone. I still expected her to come walking into the kitchen, humming that old jazz tune she loved, asking me if I wanted coffee. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a text from her. It's funny how your mind plays tricks on you when you lose someone. You know they're gone, but your heart keeps pretending they're still around, just out of sight. I honestly thought the worst was over. But I was wrong. Because what happened at the funeral, what I found out that day, shattered everything I thought I knew about Louise. The day of Louise's funeral was cold and grey, just like the day she passed. The sky hung heavy with clouds, as if even nature was mourning with me. Our small church was filled with people, family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers who had come to say their goodbyes. Emily stood beside me, looking fragile but brave, holding my arm tightly. I could tell she was trying not to cry, but her eyes were red and puffy. I felt the same inside, but I had to be strong, for her. The service started quietly, with the soft sound of the organ playing the hymn Louise loved. The priest spoke gently, telling stories about her kindness and her dedication as a teacher and mother. I nodded along, barely able to hold back the tears. When it was time for people to say a few words, I noticed a small group standing near the back of the church. They weren't people I recognized. A man and two women, all dressed neatly but quietly, like they didn't want to draw attention to themselves. I thought maybe they were co-workers or distant relatives. The first person to speak was the man. His voice was calm but had a sadness to it. He said, "I'm sorry for your loss. Louise was a wonderful woman, and she touched my life in a way I will never forget." Something in the way he said it caught my attention. There was a weight in his words, a connection I didn't understand. Then the two women spoke, and their words shocked me. "We're her family," one of them said simply. "We didn't know until recently, but Louise was our mother." My heart stopped. What? Louise had a second family. I looked at Emily, but she looked just as confused as I felt. The man, who introduced himself as David, explained that Louise had another life, a part of her she had never shared with me or Emily. She had been married once before, many years ago, and had 2 children from that marriage. He said they only found out about her passing through a distant relative, and they wanted to come to pay their respects. I couldn't believe it. For all these years, I thought I knew everything about Louise. I thought we shared everything, the good and the bad. But now, there was this whole secret life I never knew about. I felt a mix of emotions, shock, confusion, hurt, and even anger. How could she keep something like this from me? Why didn't she tell me? Were those years we spent together a lie? David saw the pain in my eyes and gently said, "We don't want to cause trouble. We just wanted to say goodbye and get to know our mother through the family she had here." I nodded, but my mind was racing. I needed to know more. I had to understand why Louise had kept this from me. After the funeral, Emily and I stayed behind while the rest of the guests left. David and the 2 women, his sisters, stayed too. We sat together in the empty church, sharing stories about Louise from different parts of her life. They told me about Louise's first marriage, how young she was, how things had fallen apart after a few years, and how she had to leave that life behind to start over. They said she had always loved her children but kept her distance to protect them and me. Listening to them, I realized how complicated Louise's life must have been. Maybe she thought she was doing the right thing by keeping us separate, by creating 2 families that never knew about each other. Maybe she thought it would hurt everyone if the truth came out. I wanted to feel anger, but instead, I felt sadness. Sadness for Louise, for the secrets she carried alone. Sadness for the pain she must have felt. Emily looked at me and said quietly, "Dad, maybe she was scared. Maybe she didn't want to lose us." I nodded, squeezing her hand. "Maybe you're right, Em." Over the next few days, David and his sisters reached out to us. We exchanged phone numbers, and slowly, we began to talk more. They sent pictures of Louise when she was younger, smiling in ways I had never seen before. Photos of her with her other family, laughing and happy. It was strange, seeing this new side of Louise. It made me feel like I was meeting her again for the first time. I told Emily about these pictures, and she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Dad, do you think Mom was happy? Really happy?" I didn't have an answer. I wanted to believe she was, but now, with this secret family, I wondered if she had been lonely or scared most of her life. The discovery of Louise's other family changed everything. It made me question the past 32 years. What else hadn't she told me? What other secrets were buried beneath the life we built together? But it also gave me a strange kind of hope. Maybe, through these new connections, we could find some peace. Maybe Emily and I could get to know a part of Louise that we never knew existed. And maybe, just maybe, we could all heal together. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Because this secret wasn't just about Louise's past. It was about how her 2 families would come together, or if they even wanted to. After the funeral and those first few phone calls, I realized this was just the beginning. Louise's secret wasn't something that could be swept under the rug or ignored. I had to face it, and so did Emily. David and his sisters, Sarah and Megan, invited us to meet them at a small cafe in town. Emily was nervous, and honestly, so was I. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would they be angry? Would they blame Louise? Or would they blame me for not knowing? I kept thinking about Louise during the drive to the cafe. What was she like in that other life? Did she love them as much as she loved Emily? Was she happy when she was with them? So many questions filled my head. When we arrived, David was already there, waiting at a corner table. He stood up as we walked in and gave me a firm handshake. Sarah and Megan came over from the counter carrying coffee and smiles that seemed warm but cautious. Emily clung to my side, quiet and reserved. I squeezed her hand gently and gave her a small smile to try and calm her nerves. David spoke first. "Thank you for coming. We know this is strange for all of us. It's not easy to suddenly find out about a family you never knew existed." I nodded. "It's a lot to take in. But I'm glad you reached out." Sarah added, "Louise loved you both. Even if she kept us apart, that was never because she didn't care." That hit me hard. I wanted to believe it, but part of me was still hurt and confused. We spent the next hour sharing stories, our memories of Louise, theirs, and the moments that made her who she was. David talked about her as a young mother, how she worked 2 jobs to support them, how she smiled despite all the hardships. Sarah and Megan told me about their childhood, how their dad left early, how Louise struggled but never gave up on them. They said she would send letters and gifts when she could, but the distance grew bigger over time. I told them about the life Louise built here, our house, Emily's school, the simple but happy days we shared. It felt strange, like 2 different worlds joined by one woman. Emily finally spoke up, asking if they had any pictures of Louise when she was younger. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed us photos, Louise holding a baby, laughing with them on a beach, dressed in bright colors. I'd never seen Louise like that before. Seeing those pictures, Emily's eyes softened. She looks so happy. Maybe she was, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. As the meeting ended, David said, "We don't want to replace anyone. We just want to be part of her story now, if you'll have us." It was a strange offer, part comfort, part challenge. I realized that Louise's secret family wasn't trying to take Emily or me away. They just wanted to share the memory of the woman we all loved. Driving home, I felt a mix of relief and worry. Could we really bring these 2 families together? Could Emily handle this new reality? And what about me? How was I supposed to live with the idea that Louise had a whole life I never knew about? That night, Emily and I talked long after the lights went out. She said she wasn't angry, just confused. She wanted to meet David and the others again, to understand more about her mom. "I just want to know all of her," she said softly. "Not just the part she showed us." I agreed. I wanted that too. But deep down, I worried about the future. Would this new connection bring peace, or would it stir up more pain? The next weeks were filled with phone calls and messages. David, Sarah, and Megan sent more photos and shared stories. Emily and I started visiting them regularly. It was strange at first, like stepping into a new world, but gradually, we began to feel more comfortable. Louise's other family wasn't a threat. They were a part of her past that was finally coming to light. And as hard as it was to accept, it helped me see Louise as a whole person, not just the wife and mother I thought I knew. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to learn. Secrets don't just disappear because you want them to. And I was right. As Emily and I grew closer with David, Sarah, and Megan, I started to realize that Louise's life was even more complicated than I first thought. The more we talked and shared, the more pieces of her past fell into place, but some pieces didn't quite fit. One afternoon, David called me. His voice was quiet but serious. "Can we meet? There's something important we found out, something you should know." I agreed without hesitation. I was starting to understand that this wasn't just about discovering a second family, it was about uncovering the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it was. We met at the same cafe where we first connected. David had some documents with him, old letters, photos, and what looked like legal papers. As he handed them to me, I felt a chill run down my spine. These letters, David explained, were from Louise. She wrote them to her kids during the years she was with you. She didn't just disappear from their lives, she tried to stay in touch. I flipped through the letters, reading Louise's handwriting, gentle, loving words full of apologies and hope. She told her children she was trying to build a new life, that she loved them but needed time. She didn't want to hurt anyone. Tears stung my eyes. Here was Louise, the woman I loved, caught between two families, trying to keep both worlds alive, struggling to do what she thought was right. David went on, but there's more. We found out she never divorced her first husband. I froze. What did that mean? Had Louise been married to two men at the same time? It looks like she never finalized the divorce before marrying you, David said quietly. That means her marriage to you wasn't legally recognized. I couldn't believe it. For 32 years, I thought Louise was my wife. But technically, she wasn't. My whole life felt like it was crashing down. Emily reached over and squeezed my hand. Dad, are you okay? I nodded, swallowing hard. I'll be fine, Em. This is a lot. We spent the rest of the afternoon trying to piece together what had happened. Louise must have left her first husband quickly after their marriage hit rock bottom. Maybe she thought the divorce was finalized but didn't realize the legal process wasn't complete. Or maybe there was something else, something she didn't want anyone to know. The truth was, Louise was protecting all of us, but it had come at a heavy cost. None of us had known the full story, and that silence had shaped our lives in ways we couldn't yet understand. After that day, I decided to dig deeper. I contacted a lawyer to understand what this meant for me and Emily, legally and emotionally. It was a confusing time. I learned that, in the eyes of the law, Louise's marriage to me was complicated, but because we lived as husband and wife for so long, some protections applied. Emily was still my daughter in every way that mattered. But the discovery forced me to face another hard truth. Louise's past wasn't just a secret, it was a tangled web of choices and consequences. And I wasn't sure how to handle it all. Emily and I talked a lot during those weeks. She was growing closer to her half-siblings, but she also saw how much the truth hurt me. I didn't want to burden her, but I knew I had to be honest. One night, Emily said, "Dad, Mom was complicated. But she loved us both, right?" I smiled, even though my heart ached. Yes, she did, Em. In her own way, she loved all of us. She just didn't know how to bring us together. That night, I realized something important. Louise's secret family wasn't just a surprise, it was a second chance. A chance for all of us to heal from the past and build something new. But it wouldn't happen overnight. There were still questions to answer, feelings to sort through, and forgiveness to find. The biggest lesson I learned was this: love isn't always simple or perfect. Sometimes, it's messy and confusing. But it's real. Louise's story wasn't over, it was just beginning to change. The weeks after learning about Louise's secret past were some of the hardest of my life. I kept asking myself, how did I not know? How did she manage to live two lives without me seeing even a hint? And most of all, how do I move on now that everything feels so broken? Emily was my anchor during this storm. Even though she was just as shocked as I was, she stayed strong for both of us. She wanted to understand her mother better, not just as the woman she knew but as the person Louise was to her other family. One afternoon, Emily said something that stuck with me. "Dad, maybe if we don't try to erase the past, we can make a new future with all of us together." Her words surprised me. For a moment, I forgot about the hurt and confusion and saw a path forward. Messy, yes, but hopeful. So, we began inviting David, Sarah, and Megan into our lives more. We planned dinners, shared holidays, and slowly started blending the two families. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes old wounds flared up. Sometimes I caught myself feeling jealous or left out. But seeing Emily laugh with her half-siblings made all of it worth it. One Sunday, we held a small picnic at the park. Louise's kids brought their own kids, and soon the air was filled with children's laughter and the smell of grilled food. Watching all these cousins play together, I realized Louise's secret wasn't about betrayal, it was about love, in all its complicated forms. I also started working through my own feelings. I saw a counselor to talk about the shock and sadness. I learned it was okay to feel angry and confused, but it was also okay to forgive, not just Louise, but myself. Louise had made mistakes, but she was human. She was trying her best with the cards she was dealt. And I had to find peace with that. Emily and I also decided to keep talking openly about Louise. We shared stories, even the hard ones, so we could remember her fully, not just the happy moments, but the difficult ones too. That made me feel closer to her, even though she was gone. One day, Emily asked me, "Dad, do you think Mom wanted us to know all this?" I thought about it long and hard. Maybe she did, in her own way. Maybe she wanted us to find each other, to heal the past she couldn't fix herself. Whatever her reasons, the truth had changed us. It broke us open but also brought us together. There were still challenges ahead. Louise's legal situation meant we had to sort through some paperwork. Some relatives from her past surfaced, curious or cautious about reconnecting. And of course, there were moments when I felt overwhelmed, wondering if I could ever fully trust again. But with Emily and Louise's other family by my side, I felt stronger than I had in months. We were creating a new family, one built not just on blood, but on understanding, forgiveness, and love. Sometimes, I catch myself smiling, thinking about how strange life is. Louise's secret could have torn us apart forever. Instead, it gave us a chance to grow, to heal, and to keep her memory alive in a way none of us expected. And that, I think, is what she would have wanted. It's been nearly a year since Louise passed, and our lives have changed in ways I never imagined. The shock of discovering her second family at her funeral felt like the end of everything I knew. But somehow, it became the beginning of something new. Emily and I have grown closer than ever. Sharing Louise's story, the whole story, has brought us peace. We learned that love doesn't have to be simple to be real. Louise's choices were complicated, messy, even painful, but they were made with love, even if flawed. Her other family became part of ours. David, Sarah, Megan, they're no longer strangers or a secret to hide. They're family. We laugh together, share holidays, and support each other. The kids call each other cousins, and I see Louise's spirit in all of them. Of course, it wasn't easy. Trust had to be rebuilt, not just between families but inside myself. I had to accept that Louise was not perfect, that she carried burdens she never shared. And I had to forgive her, and myself, for all the pain her secret caused. One day, I sat with Emily and her half-siblings and said, "Louise wasn't just our mom. She was a woman trying her best in a hard world. She made mistakes, but she loved you all. That's what matters." Emily smiled and said, "I'm glad we have each other. We can keep her memory alive, together." And that's what we do. We tell stories about Louise, the good and the bad, so her full life is remembered. Not just the wife I loved or the mother I raised Emily to be, but the whole woman she was. I also found strength in new things. I joined a local community group, made new friends, and even started volunteering at a shelter. Helping others reminded me that life keeps moving forward, even after loss. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I think about how different things could have been if Louise had told me the truth sooner. But I don't dwell on that anymore. Instead, I focus on what we have now: honesty, family, and hope. I know the road ahead won't always be easy. There will be challenges and moments of doubt. But I'm no longer afraid of the unknown. I'm ready to face whatever comes with an open heart. Louise's story taught me that families come in many shapes and forms. It's not about perfection or secrets, it's about love, forgiveness, and the courage to move on. As for me and Emily, we're building a new future, one where the past doesn't define us, but helps us grow. And I'm grateful for every moment. Because, in the end, love is what lasts. Not the mistakes or the secrets, but the bond that keeps us connected, even after someone is gone. Louise may be gone, but her love remains, in Emily, in her other children, and in me. And that love will carry us forward, no matter what. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you want to share your own story or thoughts, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you and support each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more real stories. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you in the next video.